following is a special presentation of ABC Sports.
In Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the IndyCars are ready for round 9 of the PPG IndyCar World Series. The cars are set, and Gerould is at the front row.
Paul, when they dropped the checkered flag at Cleveland last week, this man, Paul Tracy, took the win and the momentum to his hometown of Toronto, Canada. On Friday in the first qualifying session, Tracy posted the fastest time, and it stood good enough for the pole position until there were only 17 seconds remaining in the qualifying of the second and final day, when this man, his teammate, Emerson Fittipaldi, unseated him from the pole position, leaving Team Penske in a rather unique situation. Fittipaldi, in desperate need of points, trying to chase down the points leader, Nigel Mansell, in the championship, gathered 1 point for getting the pole. His teammate, Tracy, is in the luxurious position of being able to go out and only be concerned about going for a victory, while his other teammate, Emerson Fittipaldi, has to be concerned about trying to chase Mansell down and score another championship for Team Penske. For more information on this great starting grid in Canada, let's go to my colleague in row 2, Gary Gerould.
Right behind the Penske cars, Jack, 2 veteran winning drivers who've established their best qualifying efforts thus far this season. Bobby Rahal trying to bounce back from the disappointment of a first-lap, first-turn incident that knocked him out of the race at Cleveland last week, inside in the second row. Rahal, 44 points behind Nigel Mansell, not conceding anything in a bid to defend his PPG IndyCar championship. But he knows that if he is to get back in contention, he needs a win, and one soon. Danny Sullivan alongside. Best qualifying effort in over a year. Sullivan, a winner at Detroit last month, has had great success here on the streets of Toronto. 3 times he has finished second. Twice he has finished third. He'd love to add a number 1 to that very impressive finishing record. Paul?
So the first 4 position, an interesting mixture. Great champions. And, of course, the incredibly fast and skilled Paul Tracy. In the IndyCars, new names are being added to the list of contenders. Paul Tracy is the latest. At Phoenix, the Canadian Charger took the lead and put 2 laps on the entire field. But in the closing miles of the run, Tracy maneuvered under a slower car, took a chance on the pass, and lost. On the Long Beach streets 2 weeks later, Paul's aggressive give-no-quarter style paid off with the first victory of his IndyCar career. Many felt that once Paul saw his first checker, he would be unstoppable, and the accidents behind him. But as he rolled out for the start of the Indianapolis 500, Tracy's promise dimmed again. Like many who have gone before, his hopes ended against the wall. On the Milwaukee Mile, he qualified well, took the race lead, and for the 3rd time this season, he was the dominant factor in a race. But his day ended with another accident and another long walk back to the pits. Paul's youthful skill still needed some honing. Last week, it was the Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, and for the 2nd time in his career, Paul had the pole. He fought with Nigel Mansell into the first turn, but as the rest of the field followed, so packed up that 3 separate incidents occurred in the first corner. It was still green for the leader, and the hesitation gave Nigel Mansell the edge and the lead of the race. But it wasn't long before Tracy was back and around the world champion. The internal war at Gallus Racing continued. Little Al and his teammate Danny Sullivan clashed for the 2nd time this year, with Danny the loser. Mansell fell back to fight a classic side-by-side duel with Emerson Fittipaldi. The 2 great champions traded places for several laps. At the flag, Paul was pulling away, winning his 2nd race, and this time from the pole. Now we're in Canada, where they love their racing and its crop of IndyCar challengers. Vancouver's Ross Bentley starting his search for IndyCar acclaim. Toronto's own Scott Goodyear on the winning path with 1 IndyCar win. And Paul Tracy, greatness ready to happen. Today's fight is on the shores of Lake Ontario. It's the Molson Indy Toronto. The skyline of downtown Toronto and its its signature, the CN Tower. It's a bright, beautiful day here in Canada. A light breeze blows off of Lake Ontario. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page. When the IndyCars began their series of road races in June at Detroit, Nigel Mansell had a commanding points lead, and one would presume because his background is road racing that he would extend that lead. Well, it simply hasn't happened. And during practice and qualifying here at Toronto, he's crashed more on this weekend than any other weekend in his career. And two of those accidents, nearly identical in the first turn, have caused damage to his race car. Added to that, he still has a visibly swollen wrist from his accident last week in Cleveland. And so there's the very real possibility that for the second time in the year, Nigel Mansell may lose the points lead, and it might happen here. Now, Sam Posey, we're talking of first two rows in which we have IndyCar champions. The third row takes on a different complexion.
Well, exactly. You could almost call it the row of the underdog. Johansson and Bosell both have exceptional abilities, but neither of them has yet managed to win an IndyCar race. Bosell has a background in Formula One. He won the World Sports Car Championship for Jaguar. He has run 52 IndyCar races. Johansson also has a Formula One background. He came to the IndyCar ranks about this point last year and showed competitive speed immediately. Either man could break through today, Paul, with a little luck, and it would be very welcome.
So we'll keep an eye on that third row. Now, Bobby Unser, we're talking a track here with an interesting layout.
Well, Paul, unlike last week in Cleveland where the track was wide open, Toronto is very narrow with cement barriers, leaving very little margin for error. It's also an extremely rough track where the drivers will be shifting gears approximately 2,000 times. Now, the combination of bumps and a tight circuit could cause a little havoc here today. Fuel consumption really shouldn't be a problem, and especially if we have a few yellows. Now, I can't remember when we've seen so many cars so closely bunched together at the top of the field. Now think about this. The first 9 cars are within 1 mile an hour of each other.
Here at the track, a tribute to Davey, Allison. A number of the cars, Robbie Gordon, Nigel Mansell, Mario Andretti, all carrying the number 28, Davey Allison's car number, in tribute and memoriam, a special tribute to the team. It was this past week that the brilliance of one of racing's stars was snuffed out. In a tragic helicopter accident at Talladega, Davey Allison died. The young man with the sparkling eyes, a handy smile, a friendly spirit, and marvelous racing skills leaves behind a vacuum that will be very difficult to fill. To his family and his friends, who had already suffered far too much, we send our sympathies.
Brought to you by Molson. The call comes down from Canada. Crisp, clean, refreshing. Molson. Answer the call. By Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Goodyear, #1 in tires. And by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car.
Back at Exhibition Place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the IndyCar is already fired and ready to go racing. On the grid itself, the first 4 positions for the very first time this year are all held by the Chevy racing engine. As we take a look at the starting grid. The pole sitter is Emerson Fittipaldi, this year's Indy 500 winner, starting from his 14th career pole and his 3rd here at Toronto. Alongside his Penske teammate Paul Tracy, a hometown favorite coming off a convincing win at Cleveland. In row 2, it's Bobby Rahal, the defending PPG Cup champion, with his best starting position this year. Alongside Danny Sullivan, a pole starter here twice in 1988 and 1990. The third row is Stefan Johansson. He was 11th in his debut here last season. And Raul Boisel. He stands 3rd in the PPG points chase, looking to close the gap. The 4th row is Unser Jr., a 2-time winner at this circuit. And Arie Luyendyk, the 1990 Indy winner, in search of his first road course win. The 5th row, Nigel Mansell, the current points leader who has struggled this weekend to find a handle on his race car. And Scott Goodyear, another hometown hero who won his first IndyCar race last year at the Michigan 500. In row 6, it's Teo Fabi. His best finish this season came at Long Beach, where he finished 4th. And Robbie Gordon, a young and aggressive charger. His best finish this season was a 3rd at Australia. In row 7, Mario Andretti, a 30-year IndyCar veteran. And Roberto Guerrero, who's having a frustrating season. In row 8, Bertrand Gachot and Andrea Montermini. The 9th row, Jimmy Vasser and Brian Till. In row 10, Scott Brayton. and Scott Pruitt. Row 11, Willie T. Ribbs and Mark Smith. The 12th row, Kevin Cogan and Marco Greco. In row 13, Hiro Matsushita and Ross Bentley. And the 14th row, Johnny Unser and Jeff Wood. So that's the way they line up as you take a look from the front of Bobby Rahall's car. The race record here at 99 miles an hour. Michael Andretti won it last year. There's the fuel window, and fuel today could be critical. 103 laps, 300 kilometers, or 183 miles. Now, take a look at this. This requires a little study. The comparison of the Penske team and the Newman-Haas team this year. At laps led figure, mostly due to Paul Tracy. But it seems that Newman-Haas, with the help of Nigel Mansell for the most part, have been able to convert those finishes and laps led in their column to points for the PPG Cup. Now, Jack Arute, the drivers' meetings have been lively lately. What about this morning?
Paul, you'd have to characterize this one as somewhat uneventful. No discussion about the start. In fact, the only discussion was about what will constitute blocking. No major changes there. If you make one move, you're allowed to do that to cover your position. If you make two moves, that may be considered blocking. First offense, furled black flags pointed at the offender. Second offense, a stop-and-go penalty. But for the first time, actually only the third time this season, Nigel Mansell is not on the front row. On the way out, he spoke to the front row drivers. He referred to Paul Tracy, who was starting on the outside, and said, jump him on the start. The him was Emerson Fittipaldi. Remember Detroit?
Maybe somebody wants to sell the television rights to some of those drivers' meetings. We're lined up now, the PPG pace car in front, Johnny Rutherford at the wheel of the pace car, as the field is single file, and that gives you an idea just how tight this circuit is. Bobby Unser already referred to that. There are the Penske cars lined up in front. When Stefan Johansson takes the green flag, by the way, it will be the 1,000th start for the Chevy Indy V8 engine. So now they begin to come into alignment. The start-finish line, as the pace car pulls off, is actually in the middle of a curved main straightaway that is lined on the inside by the pits. The field pretty well aligned in the front row. Raul Boisel drops back just a bit. There's that curve. The green flag is just ahead of them. And there we go. The race is on in Toronto. Emerson Fittipaldi pulls way wide in the first corner. Everyone is through there safely to this point. The field continues safe on through, but Fittipaldi, by pulling wide, was able to get a little better run coming down this straightaway and leads them into the first of the real passing areas. Then Tracy, then Rahal, and then Danny Sullivan, followed by Johansson. Look at the Newman-Haas cars going through the corner side by side. Andretti and Mansell. Over to the backside, it is still now Fittipaldi in front, being chased by Paul Tracy. A Penske battle at the front of this field.
Paul, you can sure see after that bad crash at the first turn at Cleveland how much thought the guys are putting into it. They're really being considerate of the other drivers, and that makes for a lot better start.
Nigel Mansell started in ninth. He's going to have to pass some people under great pressure that he has not been racing with all season long.
And Emerson Fittipaldi leads Paul Tracy across the line, followed by Bobby Rahal, Danny Sullivan, Stefan Johansson, and Raul Boisel. Lap number 1 is complete here in Toronto. A circuit at which care is very important. The entire track lined by concrete barriers. There is virtually no room for a mistake at all. Tracy takes a look to the inside of Fittipaldi.
And you can just see that Paul Tracy is being overly careful right now. That's his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. Penske would literally kill him if they had a wreck together. So he's really starting to use his head more than usual, Paul.
You got a glimpse of Arie Luyendyk as he pulled up and made a move on Al Unser Jr. and got by. Now he challenges Robbie Gordon for 6th place.
As we talk about the importance of the championship to Fittipaldi, who leads now, remember that Roger Penske's team has not contested the championship in a stretch drive since 1988, when Danny Sullivan won it for him.
Watching the battle for the lead from 3rd place, Bobby Rahal's car, the camera mounted right on the nose. There's the first turn at the Princess Gates. You can see Tracy closing down on Fittipaldi. Now here, one of the key passing areas coming up, a sharp right-hand turn.
185 miles an hour here at the end of the straight, and then down into a second gear, 50-mile-an-hour turn. They lose 135 miles an hour in a few seconds of braking.
That's a 120-degree turn that we just went through with a 90 right to the left here. Then we're starting to work the backside of the racetrack a little bit. Fast turns to the right here. Even though it looks like a little bit of turn there, it's still basically a straightaway to these guys, Paul.
Past the pit entrance, Bobby Rahal appears to close the distance just a bit. There's the only chance for runoff at all on the left-hand side of the racetrack, where there are cones marking it. But IndyCar, if you get over there during racing, much like in Detroit, you could face a stop-and-go penalty. Battle continues at the front of the field. Fittipaldi still leading Paul Tracy. Bobby Rahal running in third place. He said with his qualifying run this weekend, that's almost alien territory for him based on how he's performed earlier in the year.
Rahal had the pole here last year, went on to finish second. This is by far the most competitive run he has had so far this year. Interestingly, Rahal's transporter is not parked where all the others are in a big building here. It's parked outside. The reason, when I asked, they want to get a quick getaway for Elkhart Lake, where they're going to do some testing earlier in the week. So Rahal has not given up the championship.
And as you can see, no change at the front of the order. Though the front end is closing down, it's Fittipaldi, Tracy, Rahal, Sullivan, Johansson, Gordon, and Lyondike.
Another little note I just want to tell everybody, Paul, is the tires go off in speed after about 3 to 4 laps. And they wear faster here than they've been wearing at most of the races. So,
and one car in trouble, spinning car. And out on the line as several cars now move to avoid.
Jeff Wood, Paul. Jeff Wood in the 42.
Jeff, who came into this race with no time and speed for qualifying. Look at the rest of the field as they back him down, and this could be what many of the teams were hoping for. This may create a full course yellow, which will give them an advantage on fuel by being able to run laps behind the pace car, at which time generally they get about 5 miles per gallon.
Scary for Jeff there to be struggling to get out of the car while one car after another has to take that turn just right. I've had ample time to talk to Jeff Wood over the weekend because he's had so little practice, one problem after another with this car.
And I started to mention about the tires. Here's a replay of the 42 car coming in. He was braking. He's just got too much brakes on the rear end. You apply the brakes, the rear starts locking up, the car comes around, just barely hit the wall, but it's enough to knock the nose off of it, so that puts him out.
Bobby probably never had a chance to try that car with full tanks.
No, and very little time that he's had on the car, period, Sam. And I started to mention about the tires. The tires are going away after about 4 or 5 laps, and then they wear pretty quick. So the guys will have to do their racing with fresh tires, or they're passing right there.
They decide that they can clear that car with a local yellow only covering that area. You can see as the field comes through, they can in fact clear it. So Emerson Fittipaldi leads. We are still running under green on the rest of the racetrack as you look at the number 28 on Trevor Weston's refueling helmet. We're back in Toronto for the Molson Indy, and as you can see by the yellow flags all along the edge of the race course, we are now under a full course yellow while they get Jeff Wood's car off the course. And you are on board Nigel Mansell's car in 14th position. Apparently, he's having some rather serious problems. Let's get an update from both of our pit reporters, starting with Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, this is the full course yellow that many of the teams felt they would need. As Bobby Unser alluded to, there was not a lot of concern about fuel consumption, but some of the Chevy teams felt that if they could get 4 laps of full course yellow early in the race, they wouldn't have to worry about settings at all in terms of fuel consumption and could run flat out, as they say. This is what they needed. This should make for more exciting racing in the waning moments of this race. Now, for more information on problems with Nigel Mansell's car, let's go down to his pit and Gary Gerould.
Jack, this has really been a weekend for Nigel Mansell. They've been in the comeback mode. They had 2 incidents where he hit the wall in practice of qualifying. He had a spin-out situation, and now they've got some engine pickup problems, at least in second gear. We understand the crew is tinkering now with the fuel, whether they richen it or lean it, trying to see if that will help this situation. So Mansell currently, I believe, in 13th place, has lost some ground since the green flag first came out.
So the weekend continues, a terrible struggle as we watch them come back toward the green flag. Green flag flies again, and the battle at the front continues. Thus far, the 4th place, Danny Sullivan. And look at, as Sullivan is being challenged by Johansson, Sullivan has been running the fastest laps at 105.4 miles an hour. Though now he is locked in a battle with Johansson.
Well, Paul, you can actually see that Paul Tracy doesn't want to take a chance in passing Emil. There's Tracy in the 12th car. There he is. That's Tracy right there ahead of Bobby Rahal. There they are going down into the 120-degree turn, but he doesn't want to pass him. But Rahal's going to keep pushing him, and pretty soon he's going to have to make an attempt to go by Emerson Fittipaldi in the lead car.
As we watch Tracy in second place, note that a Canadian has never won this race. I was talking to Paul yesterday. He has a throat problem that is really quite serious. It dries up, particularly when he's in the car. Hurts like hell and mumbling about tonsillitis. He's taken some pills. I hope it doesn't distract him too much during his drive today.
Fittipaldi still in front. Robbie Gordon runs in 6th place. His car owner, A.J. Foyt, not here this weekend. Apparently, they hospitalized him, thinking that he might have had the flu or some more serious problem. Turns out after test, it's not nearly that, and he's at home watching the race. And there's Danny Sullivan, has now been passed. As you can see, he's gotten past Bobby Rahal and now begins to close on the leaders of the races. Here comes Johansson as well. Can he hold to the outside line as he moves alongside Rahal? No, he drops in, and now Robbie Gordon is just behind him.
Well, there's so much racing right back there in the pack. We're going to see some passing pretty soon that's going to be extraordinarily good, I think, Paul.
Bobby Rahal on board his nose as the pass being made by Danny Sullivan here. The host broadcaster here, of course, the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company, supplying this feed to all of us worldwide. Over 90 countries in the world receiving coverage of the IndyCars now.
Sullivan, of course, under tremendous pressure to succeed here because his sponsor is a Canadian company. So he is really pouring it on, and you see how well he's doing. He's starting to mount an attack against his old team, Penske.
It's wonderful, too, how the Canadian fans react to their auto racing. They truly love it, and they are very deeply into it, especially the technical side of it. Another car spinning. There's the 50 car. And they were just about to give, that's of course, yes, on Montermini, and boy, now everybody stacks up there. They were about to black flag Montermini because of smoke at the back of the car, but he's created a regular parking lot down in that corner.
There's Kevin Cogan in the blue and white car in the center.
Marco Greco, Willie T. Ribbs throws the steering wheel out of his car and climbs out. He's got damage to the front left of his car. Greco's looks okay, as does Cogan's. See if we can take a look at it again.
Remember what a fantastic drive Montermini had in Detroit just a few weeks ago when he finished 4th.
You can see there was definitely something leaking out of the left side pod that probably assisted in the spin and got him into the wall. And then, of course, this was on the exit line of a corner, and it's created this situation.
You see the way the car just violently spun around, Paul, that he definitely was leaking something underneath it.
Yeah, Willie was caught in that accident in the first lap at Cleveland last week, too, so he's just flat out of luck.
The rest of the field now tries to work its way through under the second full course yellow of the day as Montermini is out of the car and they try to get the rest of the track cleared. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Tonight, after life goes on in America's funniest hour, one of the biggest events in television history returns. Richard Chamberlain and Rachel Ward star in the classic miniseries, The Thornbirds. That's all tonight on ABC. We are under full course yellow, second one of the day, as a result of an accident involving the 50 car, Andrea Montermini. He apparently had something going wrong in the side of his car, did a quick spin, and that brought 3 other cars to a dead stop right beside him and brought out the full course yellow. Right now, he's with Jack Arute.
Andre, any indication what failed on the car?
No, the car was running okay. It was no problem. Only on the last few laps, maybe, I don't know what happened, some oil leak in an engine on a pump, I don't know. So this oil come to be fire, then it's gone to the rear tire, so I spun this.
Literally spun in his own oil, Paul. That's not fun at all.
Really good to see him back. Looked like water out of the cooler on the left side, more than oil, though. Of course, the driver can't see that part of the car, so he falls to be victim very quickly. Willie T. Ribbs in the pits. You saw that he had damage to the left front nose wing on his car, so they're attaching an entire new nose assembly there. The PPG pace car comes off. Johnny Rutherford at the wheel, and here comes the field. Single file through once again, led by Emerson Fittipaldi, then Paul Tracy, Danny Sullivan. Bobby Rahal, Stefan Johansson, Robbie Gordon, Al Unser Jr., Ari Leyendijk, Raul Boesel, and Scott Goodyear round off the top 10. Fastest car in the race thus far still remains Danny Sullivan at 104.5 miles an hour. Again, Paul Tracy tries his teammate, moves to the inside, blocks him into the corner, and Paul Tracy takes the lead.
Boy, did you ever see such a careful, calculated pass? And ammo was kind of nice. He didn't even come down on him. So it showed you there that the guys realize it early and they have a lot of respect for each other.
And not only a calculated pass, but a fairly calculated response by Fittipaldi. But now maybe you can see why as Paul Tracy begins to pull steadily away from Fittipaldi. His car apparently has more at the moment, though all of the teams have reported, Bobby Unser, that they need to be very careful of tire wear, especially on the rears.
Well, that's one of the reasons why Tracy went for it early, Ben. He knew that he was faster than Emma, and we could see that earlier on. But he did it when his tires are still good.
And Bobby and Paul, as Paul just swept through here, the start-finish area, the crowd, you can see him in the stands there, Canadian leading for the first time. They erupted with wild applause, and you could hear their cheers over the sound of the engines.
Good battle for fourth developing now as Johansson comes up to challenge Danny Sullivan. He moves to the inside. Can he get this pass done? No, Sullivan still has a full car length on him.
But did you see Tracy going right into that turn at the other long straightaway, locked up both front tires? So he's going to have to do a little slight adjustment, of which they can, on their brake balance between the front and the rear.
Once again, Tracy, when he runs on his own in the lead, is in the class by himself. Look at this gigantic lead that he has piled up in just one lap.
Paul Tracy has been spectacular here, though still not as fast as Sullivan, as we take a look at the replay of that pass for the lead. Classic instruction from driver's school. As Tracy moves to the inside, takes over control of the line, and continues on into the corner.
Well, Jack talked about what they said at the drivers' meeting about blocking. Of course, Emerson did not block in any way at all. He left the door wide open. Obviously, this was a move made by prearrangement.
So the battle on the course now revolves around second, third, and fourth. Al Unser Jr. making a move on Robbie Gordon. Little Al comes to the outside, see if he can find racing room here and sweep into the corner, but Gordon has the line, though they are still very, very close. And they continue their battle. Al Unser Jr. on that very corner several years ago got in trouble as he brushed the wall and collapsed the suspension, but this time he holds off and gets around Gordon.
Now that was a good pass, but you can also tell by what Jack told us at the drivers' meeting. The guys are being a little bit more considerate of the other guys because the rule against blocking is finally going to start taking effect.
That was better than a good pass. That was sensational.
Some terrific racing here at the exhibition place, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the site of the Canadian National Exhibition. And for the most part, as you can see back behind Little Al, the rest of the field seems to string out. So Paul Tracy is running alone at front. We look at the pass once again as he maneuvers on Robbie Gordon.
Now this is at the outside at the end of the long straightaway. Bad place to try to make a pass, but he thought he had up alongside of Robbie Gordon, so Robbie really theoretically shouldn't come over into it. But Paul, they got to really trust each other a lot to do that kind of racing.
What Little Al really accomplished by getting to the outside of the right-hander was to get in a position so he would be occupying the line for the next set of left-handers, and it worked for him. Paul Tracy at the front of the field, though Emerson Fittipaldi on the last lap, running in second place, picked up the pace of this race, ran a lap at 106.1 miles an hour. That is the fastest lap of the race thus far.
But he's doing that because right behind him is that blue car right there, and your left is Danny Sullivan. Danny had a pretty good race record this track. He likes the track. He runs fast, and you can tell that today.
So the two fastest cars on the course, Fittipaldi and Sullivan, are in a battle for second place. At the same time, Ray Hall and Johansson seem to be waiting station looking for an opportunity as they line up behind. 19 laps are complete, 103 laps the scheduled distance here at Ontario. And at Toronto, on the edge of Lake Ontario.
I remember Danny Sullivan at Indianapolis in his garage. He showed me the car and he said, this is a real car. I'm going to do well with this car this year. It took him a while to get going, but you see right now, he is the foremost of the Lolas threatening the Penske cars.
You get a glimpse from time to time of the grandstands here, wonderfully filled. They've had record crowds all weekend, and the weather has been absolutely beautiful. What a magnificent city to visit. A lot of good theater. Miss Saigon, Phantom all playing here. Most of the race fans and race teams have taken time out to do that. We went to the Toronto Blue Jays game against Kansas City the other night in the Sky Dome, not far from here.
Toronto succumbed in that match to the Kansas City team, and you can imagine the enthusiasm now for a Toronto-based company sponsoring this car. Danny Sullivan running so strongly in third place, and a Canadian, Paul Tracy, leading the race.
Paul Tracy this season thus far is the season lap leader. He's led 12 times for 383 laps coming into this race, the top of all driver. The problem has been converting those laps led into checkered flags. Danny Sullivan continues his pursuit of Emerson Fittipaldi from third place. Paul Tracy, after his pass of Emerson Fittipaldi, has picked up the lead and begun to drive away. Indy Toronto, the Goodyear Blimp Spirit of Akron is floating overhead, providing aerial views of this year's Indy. The Goodyear Blimp has been flying over major events now for over 60 years. Beautiful sky here today, slightly overcast. That may help tire wear. Arie Luyendyk is in the pits. In the last few seconds, he had some serious problems and was passed by several cars. Gary Gerould?
Well, we didn't have time to ascertain from the crew what the problem is, but they're making tire change now, a wing change up front, affecting the handling. That's it. He's out of here. So apparently it was just a severe vibration or a handling problem.
Gary, of course, Arie's wife, Mika, expecting twins any day now. Arie has been carrying a phone around with him, waiting for word that she might be going into labor.
I think what happened there, Sam and Paul, is he probably had a flat tire because he was running real fast. All of a sudden he got passed by a big group of cars, so obviously he had a flat tire coming on.
He was actually locked in a fight with Teo Fabi Mansell and Mario Andretti. It was really a rotating battle for 10th place, and then all of a sudden he was offline and slowing down.
His best performance in the last few months, actually.
Let's go back to the pits and Gary.
I call one of the key men on the managing team for Chip Ganassi's squad managing Luyendyk says that they couldn't define a specific problem other than a severe push. They thought maybe it was a tire. That wasn't the case, not flat. Hopefully they've made the changes that'll make it a smoother ride for Luyendyk, but he was one of the first into the pits.
At the same time, Raul Boisel continues to circle in 8th place on this track, trying to line up behind Robbie Gordon and battle with him as we watch Emerson Fittipaldi still in 2nd place, and Jack Arute has been keeping an eye on Raul. Jack?
Well, Paul Boisel is in that points chase, so he's running as conservatively as possible. The same can be said for Bobby Rahal. Qualifying third, he lost that third position to Danny Sullivan, and he is right behind Sullivan as we watch Sullivan wheeling his car. Now, here's the problem for Bobby Rahal. Since moving over to the Lola, they have only been afforded, now get this, 2 full days of practice. So according to Rahal and Carl Hogan, the learning curve is still very steep for this car. So they have determined that their strategy for this race, in which they are the defending champion, lay back and don't race until the final quarter of this event.
The Rahal-Hogan team, on the other hand, has been putting a lot of testing time on their other car, which is the Honda-powered machine, hoping that it will be ready for next season. Danny Sullivan still in pursuit of Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi up the pace to 107.6 miles an hour as he was pressured by Sullivan. And Scott Pruitt's car into the pit area and a display of vapor at the back of the car, which could spell the end of the day for Scott.
That looks like an engine problem, Paul, and that's a second engine. That's the Chevy A engine, the oldest of the Chevrolet engines in there. Second one they've had a problem with this week.
Paul Tracy up behind Arie Luyendyk now, as Luyendyk in and out of the pits after that stop where they changed all the tires, and Paul Tracy is able to work his way past, but that little confrontation with Luyendyk slowed the leader down and allowed both Fittipaldi and Sullivan to close in.
Tracy has spoken of getting in a zone when he's out ahead like this, passing car after car. He feels almost invincible. He knows, of course, from his mistakes at Phoenix and Milwaukee that he is not invincible and that he has to be more careful overtaking back markers. I know that's on his mind. He spoke to me about it yesterday. We'll see if it pays off for him today.
Of course, any mistake here at all by Paul Tracy or any other driver can send them right into the wall. It's so very close all of the way. Jack Arute, you've been watching this Penske driver.
One of the great things about working on pit road is nothing goes unnoticed by the top teams. Remember when Arie Luyendyk came into the pits? The first thing that Roger Penske, Chuck Sprague, and the rest of the crew did to Paul Tracy was let Tracy know that 2 tires were changed. They already knew, in fact, before us, that there was a vibration, so now they alerted Tracy to the possibility that tires could become an issue, saying to him, be careful when you're working race traffic.
This, of course, is a very tense situation for Fittipaldi, who, despite cutting that fast lap earlier, has slowed. You see Sullivan right behind him, and Rahal behind there, and then Johansson. They are all putting incredible pressure on Fittipaldi. Now, Fittipaldi, in the championship situation, knows that Mansell is running out of the top 10. He is in a position, if he finishes strongly, to close in on the championship. He does not want to forfeit this opportunity, but on the other hand, he's got to push hard to stay ahead of these men.
So we continue watching this battle for second place, now watching from Danny Sullivan's third place car.
And you know, you talk about Fittipaldi, who's right up there in the front of the screen, the red and white car. You know, Fittipaldi, as Sam was saying, has to really be careful because he's going to drive conservative because it's the points he's after. They're past the halfway point in the season. Winning the championship after you've won the Speedway is the only important thing. So Fittipaldi probably is as fast as Paul Tracy, just being a little bit more conservative right now.
But it should be noted that the last time Emerson Fittipaldi won Indianapolis, which was 1989, he went on to win the championship.
28 laps are complete. The fuel window should have been pushed back a little bit by those 2 yellow flag sessions, but not so far, and they still have to be very careful of their fuel mileage here, though that may have given everyone some breathing room.
Remember riding with Sullivan in the last laps of the race at Detroit that he went on to win. He is excellent on these tight little tracks.
The leader, Paul Tracy, car number 12, works his way around Hiro Matsushita and starts to put the entire field a lap down. Matsushita was running in 15th place, so he is carving his way up through the field. Let's go pit side again and Gary Gerould.
Paul, very frustrating day for Scott Pruitt. They blew a motor in their 2-year-old chassis this morning in the warm-up, replaced it. It was the backup engine that just let go. So 2 engines here in the course of a matter of hours. Pruitt doing a heck of a job, I think, in a 2-year-old chassis. Doing a very commendable job, but no longer a chance to compete.
Fight continuing at second place, still between Fittipaldi and Danny Sullivan, and they continue to thrash at one another around the entire course. So at 29 laps of the 103 scheduled distance now complete, Paul Tracy is the second leader of the day and pulling away. This Saturday on ABC Sports, Arnold Palmer and the seniors' golf's brightest stars will shine at the Senior British Open. Coverage begins at 2 o'clock Eastern, 3 Pacific. And then back in the States, the ladies tee off in our national championship. It's the U.S. Women's Open, live at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. All Saturday on ABC Sports. We're now at lap 36 in the 103-lap run. On board, Bobby Rahal, the front of his car. He runs in 4th place and heads down the pit lane. That quick little turn on a curved pit road all the way down to the far end, and Jack Arute waits. Jack?
Paul, the first of the guaranteed front runners to make his stop. They, as we've said before, playing it conservative and close to the vest. He comes to a stop and they will change 4 tires and take on fuel. Just ahead of Bobby Rahal, just a lap ago, Stefan Johansson came into the pits as well. It looked to be a nominal stop, only to discover that they've lost the turbo boost. Rahal is off and away in 13.8 seconds. A very quick stop. The next scheduled stops, Paul Tracy, your leader, and Emerson Fittipaldi.
So as Rahal comes back into the fight, you can see how carefully you have to join coming out of the pits and into the first corner. It's very tight down there, and Fittipaldi with a problem. Fittipaldi off the edge of the course, gets going again. What's wrong with Fittipaldi? Take a look at all 4 tires. Bobby, did you catch anything there?
No, I certainly didn't, Paul. The tires looked good, and he got going again. It looked like maybe he had just driven in too deep, maybe locked up his brakes for a moment, because right there, he looks fine.
An indication of tire wear, though.
No, tire wear shouldn't be bad. It's not going to be real good, but most of the laps have been yellow. He really shouldn't have a tire problem yet.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Paul, we just checked with Chuck Sprague, who calls the shots. He talked to Emerson Fittipaldi, and all Emo said is he just missed the corner.
Fittipaldi, in doing that, way off the corner, was able to get back on line and continues his pursuit of Danny Sullivan.
Yeah, Emerson may be 46, but his reflexes are really good. I was talking to him in the pits. He gave me a wave from his motor scooter, and as we were making eye contact, another motor scooter came shooting out, and Emerson, without even looking over there, got his brakes on, and the guy shot by him. So that guy is a survivor.
So Paul Tracy, the leader of the race. Danny Sullivan now up to second. Fittipaldi back to third. Unser Jr. is fourth because of Johansson's moving out. And now here we have the leader of the race, Paul Tracy, coming down to the Penske pits, and Jack Arute.
And it will be tight quarters for Paul Tracy because the Gallus team is also waiting for their stops. Roger Penske puts the board out. The team goes to work in what is an organized ballet of changing Ford tires. In the meantime, Danny Sullivan and Unser Jr. are also getting service. Let's check in with Gary Gerould.
We've got both Sullivan and Unser in here now. Danny Sullivan has hit the 12-second mark off the jacks, rolling in 13.5 seconds. His teammate Unser right in front of him. The crew reacted here when they saw Fittipaldi's problem on the big screen. They were jubilant. They moved Sullivan up to second.
Paul Tracy got out ahead of Danny Sullivan. Teofami came out as well. Let's go back to Jack.
And Gary, while that action was going underway, Paul Tracy had a minor miscue. As he tried to put the car back in gear, he couldn't find the proper gear, and he stumbled for a moment, almost stalled the car, but he was off and away, but it cost him valuable seconds.
You know, often, Paul, they just cram the things in the direction.
It looks like Teofami off the edge of the course. It does not look like he caught either the tire barrier or the wall, though there are some hefty black marks leading up to the back of that car. Now, having assumed the lead of the race, here's Emerson Fittipaldi in for his stop, Jack.
Now, Fittipaldi, like his teammate, they're going to change 4 tires, take on fuel. This makes it a possibility for them to make it a 2-stop race. Fittipaldi, after his little miscue, trying to gather it back up. That's one of the great things about Emerson. When they did a heart monitor on him as he completes a 14.1 second stop, they found that his heart rate under racing conditions went no higher, can you believe this, than 110.
Well, incredible fitness, Jack, of course, Emerson Fittipaldi. I've seen him undergo one of those stress tests where you bicycle for hours on end. The man is built of iron.
So Fittipaldi in and out with his stop, as is Paul Tracy, Danny Sullivan, Unser Jr., and Bobby Rahal. Teofami came out of the pits very close to the leaders and then got up next to the wall. Now they have the IndyCar safety team there trying to get him restarted.
On Tracy's pit stop, I started mentioning a while ago, Paul, when they put him in gear, they just put him in a direction. What he did, the transmission gear shifts are so close together, he just chunked it into too high a gear.
Further update, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, remember that the Penske chassis is utilizing what is called a sequential gearbox, similar to what you see on a motorcycle. So when you come down into the pits, some of the drivers have had a little bit of problem finding neutral because instead of a standard H pattern, it's 1 up and 5 down, and they have to search for it. That could have, we're not sure, but could have accounted for the slight miscue by Paul Tracy.
Although, interestingly, Jack, Paul Tracy spends his spare time on a motorcycle, so he's very familiar with the setup.
So with the pit stops, despite the miscue, Emerson Fittipaldi leads the race, now being chased by his teammate Paul Tracy. Mark Smith has had his problems. They had a little fire on this car. They've apparently gotten it out without any severe damage, and he will be able to return to the fight. There goes that ongoing battle for third place. Danny Sullivan, Unser Jr., and Bobby Rahal. But look what we have. Little Al and Danny Sullivan battling for position, and it's third place.
Yeah, you can see been slowly gaining on them. They were coming up behind the cart truck that you saw the lights on. They can't pass right there. But little Al is one that's obviously made some changes or whatever during the pit stop. He's on a move now, Paul.
Anyone familiar with the pattern that little Al runs in races always knows that it's about this point in the race that we start to see him challenging for the leading position. Why does he not qualify better? Why don't we see him from the start? Here's, of course, Teofami making a quick stop.
Well, let's go to the pits and Gary.
Well, Paul, they believe that one of the Penske cars pinched him and he got up against the tire barrier. They've assessed that there's no damage. They've just changed the tires, fueled him. He's now back on course, but he lost a considerable amount of time.
Here's that situation. Let's take a look at it. The Penske car in question would have been Paul Tracy. They went into the corner side by side. Tracy was doing everything he could to stay over and off the line, but coming off the corner, yes, he did lead him out toward the wall, wouldn't you say, Bobby?
Yes, he certainly did. Tracy would be a little bit fault there, in my opinion, because he just kind of moved over, didn't leave Fabi any place to go, and Fabi was up right alongside of him going into the turn.
The first pit stops are now complete. 42 laps, the distance traveled thus far of the 103-lap scheduled distance. And Emerson Fittipaldi leads. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
Indy Toronto is brought to you by your local Yamaha dealer, who invite you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and water vehicles. By Mobile Link Cellular Service, it's simply the way to communicate. By Armor All, there is a fountain of youth, and we own the patent. And by AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time.
Molson, Indy, Toronto, 47 laps, the 103-lap scheduled distance complete. Emerson Fittipaldi leads. The early leader of the race, Paul Tracy, is running in second right now. We are under a full course yellow with Danny Sullivan in third, Unser Jr. in fourth, Bobby Rahal is fifth, and Scott Goodyear in sixth, but they are now all bunched up once again. There was a problem on board Arie Luyendyk's car, and in fact, he still sits in the pits, and Gary Gerould is there.
An unusual situation. After he made his early pit stop filled up with fuel, he went out on the course, the fuel alarm sounded, and the engine just totally shut down. They think it's an electronic gremlin of some type. Also need to update the Nigel Mansell situation. He's been complaining that he is losing boost. He's been saddled back there between 9th and 12th. He's had handling problems. He's also had a problem with the shift linkage going from second to third gear. This has not been a good day thus far for Mansell. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Gary, it's interesting that Stefan Johansson had an engine quit as well. You don't know what was wrong, but what about the drive until then?
I was running real good. I was just really pacing, taking it real easy, running on the minimum fuel, short shifting everywhere, just trying to stay in touch, to monitor what the other guys were doing on the, on their pit stops, and it was running good. The car was perfect. I wanted to attack in the last two stints.
Well, he's not going to get to do that, but some others will as they drop the green, Paul.
Green out again. First four cars are running together on the race course. Fittipaldi, Tracy, Sullivan, Al Unser Jr. Then a break. That's Gauchot in the car normally assigned to Lynn St. James. Gauchot in the car this week, his first IndyCar race. Bobby Rahal sitting back trying to get in contact with Al Unser Jr. He runs in fifth.
Now keep in mind, early in the race, Tracy was the fastest. Right now, Emo's leading like he did early in the race again, right after the start. Danny Sullivan, the guy's been moving up pretty fast, though, is right behind the two Penske cars there.
And, of course, right behind Sullivan, right in his mirrors, is little Al, the man who tangled, Sullivan and little Al tangled last week in Cleveland. And as I started to say before, little Al generally starts cautiously at the beginning of these races and comes along slowly because during practice and qualifying, he emphasizes looking for a setup that will be good in the race. And he does not put the big emphasis on qualifying.
Fastest car thus far in the race remains Fittipaldi. 107.6 miles an hour, turned on lap 22. We are now running on the 50th lap of the run. Rahal finally got his way around Gauchot. And now the rest of the field have the same problem to contend with as Rahal in fifth place closes in on Al Unser Jr. The leaders still right together on the race course and pushing Fittipaldi hard.
Right now, the situation could not be better for Team Penske. Emerson Fittipaldi in the lead, piling up points, and of course, Mansell mired back in the 9th and 10th positions and in trouble.
And also keep in mind, Sam and Paul, that the tires are more than halfway through this segment of fuel run before they make another pit stop, which should come around lap 77. Hard to tell for sure because of the yellows. But the tires are definitely getting worn a little bit right now.
The battle for sixth place. The number 2 Mackenzie car is Scott Goodyear, who was in sixth, but surprisingly peels off and heads into the pits, giving sixth away to Robbie Gordon in his battle with Raoul Boisel. Jack Arute.
Well, this is definitely an unscheduled pit stop because I just spoke to Derek Walker, the team owner, and he said the problem that they were having is the car operated better on full tanks than on low tanks, so they were going to try to keep the car as full as possible. He did not want to bring the car in now, but he was going to bring it early and out of sequence.
So in 10.9 seconds,
Jack, a bitter disappointment for this team to drop out of contention because they had the fastest warm-up lap this morning, getting headlines really for the first time since their pole position back in Phoenix. They've had a real rocky year. The sponsor apparently going away. Scott Goodyear's future a little bit in question at the moment.
Well, Sam, they still have McKenzie on for this year, and that'll go to the end of the year, but for sure McKenzie told them they won't be on with them next year. But right now, they normally have a good car. It's a 93 Lola with Ford power. That's about as good as you can get, but you're right. They certainly haven't had the car working really good this year.
And you know, Bobby, Scott Goodyear's Lola, like other Lolas in this series, have proven very, very tough to set up just right. I talked to Kevin Cogan this morning, and he spoke of how delicate it is to get one of these cars set up. And the reason, of course, Mansell has a Lola, and I think the reason that the Penske cars are coming on mid-season is that they are good from track to track. It doesn't matter where they go, they come off the trailer fast. And as Roger himself pointed out, that's what leads you to a championship.
Well, that untimely pit stop caused Goodyear to fall out of the top 10. He now runs in 11th place, so he lost 5 positions when he darted in and out of the pits.
Yeah, and as you said, Paul, it's an untimely pit stop, so the folks follow the race, they want to remember, he's stopping in odd laps. He's out of sequence with the other guys, which may mean he has to make an extra stop.
Back at the front, the fight continues. The three-way battle between Fittipaldi, Tracy, and Sullivan, with Allison running in 4th place.
Fittipaldi.
Well, look at the brakes light up on those Fittipaldi brakes.
He won here in 1987, but not since then.
You know, the thing about the Lolas, there's the 2 Penske's, the red and white was out in front with a Lola, Danny Sullivan right behind a new Lola. And the thing about the Lolas, as Sam was starting to mention, they don't seem to be handled good at every track. They're pitch sensitive or angle sensitive. Whenever the angle of the race car in any direction changes, the cars don't keep their adhesion to the ground. Nobody so far has been able to whip this problem, but they're all trying.
And that's at the same time, though, Bobby Unser, that the Penske cars are really getting the power down well here in the midseason. In fact, so well that a lot of people are muttering the word traction control on the Penske car, and muttering it so loud that the officials a week ago asked them to disconnect some of their wheel sensors and do the same thing again this weekend.
Yeah, but Penske doesn't cheat, number one. What you mean by power down, so everybody knows, is just more traction. The rear wheel's not spinning as much. And what Penske used to have was a traction control device which cut out a cylinder or 2 whenever the wheels started to spin, and they don't allow that anymore.
You got a glimpse there of the back end of Nigel Mansell's car with some sort of vapor or smoke showing at the back of the car, and he is definitely off the pace.
The team has been, the Newman-Haas team has had a remarkable reliability record so far this year. Were Mansell to retire, it would be the first time a mechanical failure has sidelined it.
Well, this guy is normally so fast. I think everybody has to wonder, why is he running so slow? And especially on a road circuit where he is one of the masters of all time.
Hey, Bobby, the way things stand right this minute with Nigel in trouble, Emerson Fittipaldi tentatively leads the PPG IndyCar Championship with 108 points to Mansell's 107. That's if the race ended right this minute.
The real question I have, though, is this problem appeared several turns before the pit entrance, and Nigel drove right on past the pit entrance and stayed out on the racetrack. So we'll continue to keep an eye on Nigel Mansell, as we will on the front of the field, led by Emerson Fittipaldi, followed by Paul Tracy, Danny Sullivan, and Al Unser Jr.
In 1982, Roger Mears, who had a lot of off-road racing experience, decided to try some Fox motocross motorcycle shock absorbers on an Indy car for the first time. And his brother, Rick Mears, a few races later, tried them on his Penske chassis. Well, since that time, motocross technology has made its way to the shock absorber system of an Indy car. These are remote reservoirs that cool the oil from the shock absorber. Over the last few years, aerodynamics has become more and more important in the Indy car development. And it's very important that the air underneath the car helps the car stick to the road, and so therefore the cars are pitch sensitive. That's where the shock absorber comes in. Well, Roger Penske has his own shock absorber company now, run by Jeff Ryan, who was from Fox Shocks, and they now have 4-way valving. You can adjust high speed and low speed of both the compression and the rebound. But you may say, well, this doesn't look like an IndyCar shock. Well, you're right. Now everything has made full circle. Penske Shocks now builds a motocross shock absorber. But if you race motorcycles, you probably don't want to race out and buy this one. This prototype costs $5,000.
Mansell and Gary Gerould is there.
Two things immediately. Bodywork burning on the right rear. They quickly douse it with water. That doesn't appear to be a major problem. Nigel has been complaining about losing boost. Now it looks like this is anything but a routine stop. The engine has been shut off. They're going to take some of the rear bodywork off. And boy, that championship points lead, major jeopardy right now. Mansell indicating he doesn't know just what the situation is and what he's going to do. We'll wait with the crew and find out.
Well, most likely, Gary, what they're going to find is they've got a leak in the exhaust system. The panel burning, whatever's burning back there, is definitely causing some sort of a problem. And so that's going to be the root of where the problem's coming from. Could be an exhaust pipe broken.
If he stays in the pits, he could finish no better than 20th place as we look at the interval leaderboard. Mansell's worst finish this season, if you discount the fact that he didn't race at Phoenix at all, was 15th at Detroit when he crashed late in the day. So this could have a definite impact on the season battle for the PPG Cup.
That broken exhaust possibility that I told you about, Paul, could also account for the lack of boost that he has, because the driver really wouldn't know the difference. All he would do is look at the numbers, and if they're not high enough, he calls in and says, I don't have enough boost.
Just past the halfway point now as Nigel Mansell climbs out of the car, apparently out of this run here in Toronto. Let's get a further update down the pits. Jack Arute.
Well, it seems like today we're talking more and more about boost. Listen to what just happened to Paul Tracy. His crew, the ones on the technical side running the computers, just discovered that they weren't getting full use of the boost. The readouts back when they offloaded information during the last pit stop indicated that they weren't using it all. So they radioed to Paul, turn it up full. We're not concerned about having to conserve fuel. We want to go for the win.
So Paul Tracy will have some additional power in his battle with Danny Sullivan and Unser Jr.
You know, and often what happens, like it could have been in Tracy's situation there, they're so busy looking at traffic and the turns, going back and forth to right and the left, that they don't look at the boost. They figure everything's pretty good. They get a little bit lackadaisical. I've seen that happen to a lot of drivers.
Now with the computer systems on board and the engine management and the computer display on the dashboard, Sam, there's a lot of good information that they can pick up in the cockpit. As we look at the point standings as they would come at the moment, with Fittipaldi moving to the points lead, just as you suggested, Sam.
And you see Bosell also holding steady in third. He was one of the men we spoke of at the beginning, one of the underdog racers in the business. He is having a typical drive, staying in the top 10 and counting on his long distance skills and his fitness to move him up toward the end.
So 58 laps now complete in the Molson Indy Toronto. Emerson Fittipaldi, one of the two leaders of the day, is back in front. Paul Tracy led in the early going. Fittipaldi was the pole sitter and led the first laps. Danny Sullivan and Unser Jr., they continue to wage their war within the team for third and fourth position. Bobby Rahal with one of his best runs of the year, now in fifth place.
So this is really the moment when the tide has turned from the Newman-Haas team, which has led the championship either with Nigel or Mario since the beginning of this season. It is now being led by the Penske team, and of course they are not only leading the championship, they are dominating this race. And I said to Roger yesterday, Roger, I think the tide is turning, and he looked at me very sharply and he said, never forget, it could turn the other way really suddenly too. So you know it's on his mind, and he'd like to see it stay this way.
Well, he doesn't like prediction
there. Is that what that is?
Well, he doesn't. Penske doesn't go for superstitions or people predicting wins and things like that. He would rather just go along and try to win every race as it comes. Then if he wins the championship, he's just that much happier.
But I think he remembers the quote, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
I knew you'd get something.
He had to do it just again, didn't he?
We were headed that way.
Saw that one coming, saw the flag out, and Sam drops one in. Thus far this season, Nigel Mansell has the most top 5 finishes with 6. Of course, that's not going to occur today. Bosell has the most top 10 placings, 7 thus far this season. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Well, Nigel Mansell, we've heard all kinds of problems for you today. What ultimately put you on the sidelines?
The right-hand weight skate on the right-hand side, the whole back end blew off, and I had no boost pressure at all, and the boost pressure was dying down. I was having problems for about the last 20 laps.
This is the first weekend since you've come IndyCar racing where you've really had to play catch-up. How tough is this for you and your crew to handle after all the success you've had early?
No, I mean, that's motor racing. We had a lot of problems with the car all weekend, and if we're going to have a problem anywhere, it's going to be here. And, we had a mechanical failure with the wastegate, but, I mean, that's motor racing.
Now you've got a week to rest and recoup and get ready for 500 tough miles in Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely.
We wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul?
So Bobby Unser was right, and Nigel changes the saying, makes it a little more Euro. That's not just racing, that's motor racing.
One of their longest and toughest tests. It's the Michigan 500, August 1st on ABC Sports.
Back in Toronto, Canada, the skyline of the downtown, the CN Tower, and not far away, in fact, right next to it. Look in there. There is the Sky Dome, all opened up and ready for the Blue Jays to play baseball. But right now, the focus is over at Exhibition Place, where the Goodyear Blimp Spirit, up from Akron, Ohio, has been on assignment for Goodyear Canada since last Wednesday and floating over the racetrack here at Exhibition Place. And on the track itself, a battle. Bobby Rahal, as he is now trying to run down Al Unser Jr. We take a look at the leaderboard. Fittipaldi in front, followed by Tracy, then Danny Sullivan. In fourth place, it's Al Unser Jr. And right behind him, Bobby Rahal, the defending PPG Cup champion, trying to catch up. Robbie Gordon rounds out the top six. So we keep an eye on this battle. This is the only confrontation on the race course right now. And from time to time, Rahal has been able to pull up right on the back of Little Al's car.
Rahal won the championship in 86, 80 championship in 1990. So former champions battling it out.
But keep in mind, they're only about 8 laps, roughly 7 laps, something like that, off of another pit stop in tire changes. Now, the tires in all these cars are beat up and battered right now, pretty bad, slippery. So you don't see a lot of passing, but you see Rahal pulling up on Little Al like that.
Yeah, Bobby, and of course by this point the tires will have picked up a lot of the loose rubber and gravel that's on the track from the earlier races, and they're slicker than ever.
Sam, they don't do that except when you go slow. And as long as they're racing speed, they stay clean. It's just the rubber wears down close to the cords right now.
So the fight continues between Bobby Rahal and Al Unser Jr. for fourth. At the top of the order, it is still Fittipaldi, Tracy, Sullivan. No changes there. None of those in contact with one another, strung out on this long circuit lined with concrete barrier here at Exhibition Place. We'll continue to ride and watch and listen with Bobby Rahal. Scott Brayton drives off the course with a shredded left rear tire and pulls it to a position of safety, apparently deciding that this race is done for the day. He's not even going to try to limp it back into the pit area.
I'm really surprised he didn't try to get that back, Paul. He seems to be giving up too easy because we don't really see anything broken except for the tire. Now, he might have other problems that we can't see, though.
Here's when it let go.
And you can see he's locking up the tires. The left front isn't, but the right front locks up. But look at the left rear. It's totally flat, but the car looks like it would be drivable back. Now, Scott may not realize exactly what's wrong. He might think he has other problems besides the tire being flat.
Boy, he did a nice job keeping that thing under control.
Super good job, Sam.
Yep.
Super job.
Locked the brakes up hard, rode it off into the escape road. No problems whatsoever, and perhaps they can get that thing restarted.
And remember, that was at the end of the long back straightaway, so that even shows you more about how good a job he did keeping it under control.
Came down from what, about 185 to 0 there?
Right, down to 0 in pretty short distance, Paul.
Front of the field here is Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy in second, Sullivan third, Gerould on the pit stops upcoming.
Well, Paul, it should come as no surprise that neither first nor second anticipate any changes. Team Penske very pleased with the performance of both cars. But here's what is extremely interesting. They are going to run as far as they possibly can on this tank of fuel for Emerson Fittipaldi. You know why? They only have 31 gallons left in the main tank here on pit road. They want to make absolutely certain they can take all that in so they won't have to come back again. Let's check in with Gary Gerould.
And with Team Gallus running third and fourth, no anticipated changes for Danny Sullivan, according to Ed Nathman, who runs this team. Rick Gallus has indicated they may go for a slight wing change, more downforce on the front of Junior's car. That should be coming up on lap 76 if all stays as expected.
And as the leader of the race, the 4-car Fittipaldi handles up Hiro Matsushita. Paul Tracy closes right down, but he cannot get past Matsushita and loses contact with the leader. He was right there in attack position for a moment, and then Matsushita's car got in the way.
Well, it shows you how hard it is to pass right in the turn. Plus, remember, these guys have gone a long way in this race. They really don't want any screw-ups right now. What Tracy has been having happen to him all year with little wrecks, he's now determined doesn't happen.
And look at this as Emerson Fittipaldi peels off and heads into the pit area. Paul Tracy reassumes the lead of the race. This is totally unscheduled. Fittipaldi went to lap 59 for fuel before. We would assume he'd go at least that far here, Jack.
Well, Paul, remember what I told you. The problem was they know exactly how much fuel they have left in the big tank. Once the readout on the dash tells them they can take all of that in, it's time to come in and take on new tires. More important to have fresh rubber and also to have a full tank of fuel. That's why they're taking so long. They needed to make sure that it was all in, all the fuel they could take. They did it in 14.1 seconds.
Fittipaldi, nice clean out. Roger Penske watches his cars. Both Fittipaldi keeps track more of Tracy. Fittipaldi had to be careful coming out of the pits not to get two wheels over that bold yellow line to the left of the pit exit, or he would have suffered a stop-and-go penalty. It seems that all the cars have been very aware of speed limits in the pits here today, and we haven't had any trouble with that.
You know, often, if you wonder why Emil came in early, sometimes it happens this way, that the guy picks up, as he goes through the turn, the pickup in the bottom of the tank maybe isn't set just perfect. He picks up a little bit of air, and the engine coughs a little bit. It looked like that's what happened to Emil because he came in on his own. It was not premeditated by Penske.
Danny Sullivan, who assumed second place when Fittipaldi came in, is into the pits, and Gary Gerould's there.
Watching with the crew as they spring into action for what they hope will be the final time. Last time, Junior pitted on the same lap with Sullivan. That doesn't appear to be the case this time. Sullivan, who's been a three-time second-place finisher, rolling in 12.9 seconds. Terrific stop.
Fast though it is, Danny Sullivan has fallen back to sixth place now, and that brings Al Unser Jr. right up in contact with Bobby Rahal, but Rahal got around Al Unser Jr. Paul Tracy took the lead of the race on Fittipaldi's pit stop, and Rahal then began a fight with Little Al and moved into second place.
It's been easy to see the Little Al's had braking problems. I don't mean with the brakes, probably with the tires. If you notice often as he's gone into the turns, like when he's racing Danny Sullivan, he can't brake as late, and Danny really gathers up Little Al going into the turns.
Jack Arute, you mentioned that was part of Fittipaldi's game plan as Bobby Rahal makes his turn into the pits, but Jack, were they laid out and ready for him with that?
They were, because it's a long pit road, so they were able to jump over the wall. But Paul, he had a very close call as Bobby Rahal comes in for what should be his final pit stop and service from the Rahal Hogan team. Emerson Fittipaldi had a very close call coming down pit road. He wanged the wall and got some of the temporary banners wedged in this wheel. Very good and very lucky racing for Fittipaldi that it happened on pit road.
So Bobby Rahal in and out. Paul Tracy is still on the course and the leader of the race. Let's go to Gary.
Well, here's that ugly confrontation once again that's become so familiar. Card officials, and we understand that Danny Sullivan may get a black flag. They say he exceeded the speed limit on pit road. Ed Nathman is furious. He said there's no way you can reach 80 miles an hour from where we are, about 5 pits from the end of pit road.
You know what's really scary, Sam and Paul and Jack, is that often a radar gun that goes out in an angle, it's a giant cone. It starts very sharp, and then it goes really wide. I'm not too sure that as they point down the straightaways in the pit, that they know that radar gun is actually shooting the pit, or whether it got somebody in combination out on the track.
And here comes Al Unser Jr. in, Gary.
Well, this can make a whole new complexion as far as Junior is concerned if his teammate Sullivan has to acknowledge that black flag. So this is a critical stop. Now we are told that they've withdrawn the penalty. There was a discussion there will be no penalty. Junior rolling in 16 seconds. So maybe it won't be so bad for Sullivan as they're reviewing that situation.
0 to 60 for an Indy car is about 2.2 seconds.
Al Unser Jr. came out of the pits, but Bobby Rahal was able to get around as he came out of the pits. That dropped Al Unser Jr. back to 5th place, put Rahal in 4th. So now here is the current leader of the race, Paul Tracy, as he heads for Jack Arute, and Emerson Fittipaldi will assume the lead of the race. Jack?
Well, very, very nominal stop. Tracy wiping his glasses, lifting the visor. Tim Bumps in the crew. Jerry Breon changing the outside tires. Roger Penske calling the shots and working the radio, letting everyone know when the jacket's dropped. It's away in 12.4 4 seconds. Final stop for Team Penske today.
And the good news is that since they're down at the end of the pits, they can't break the speed limit, but they do have to be careful about how they cross that yellow line on the pit exit. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. In 2 weeks here on ABC Sports, it's the second of the 2 500-mile races of the year. The Michigan 500, live from Roger Penske's beautiful Michigan International Speedway. Live at 1:30 Eastern Time, 12:30 Pacific. Now, we keep an eye on the race with Paul Tracy in the lead, 83 laps of the 103-lap scheduled distance complete. And the intervals behind the leader with Emerson Fittipaldi laying back almost 6 seconds from Paul Tracy. And we ride on board with Danny Sullivan, currently in 3rd place. Again, a circuit totally lined with concrete barriers, and one which causes the driver to be so very careful. The lap leaders thus far today, well, they all belong to Roger Penske's team. Fittipaldi took the early lead as the pole sitter, then Paul Tracy took over, then back to Fittipaldi, then Paul Tracy.
You see a race which does not mention Nigel Mansell among the leaders, and it focuses attention on the fact that it is very rare in this series now that a driver breaks down, that a car breaks down in the race, and you must earn your positions by speed on the track. 10 years ago, about 50% of the cars would break down in the races. Now it's a very small percentage. Big difference in the way racing is conducted.
Emerson Fittipaldi, he runs in 2nd place. That bright yellow car just behind him is Jimmy Vasser, who has Ford Cosworth power for the first time this weekend. And as he starts to get more improved equipment, Jimmy Vasser is definitely going to be a factor to contend with.
Don't take him just listen to the gear changes that you're getting out of Bobby Rahal. You can get an idea, and you can kind of, doesn't make any difference what the RPM numbers are, you can get an idea. Listen to it as he comes up to, engine hits the same pitch, pops the gear, comes down, pop, pop, pop right down into the gears, right behind Danny Sullivan, both of them probably doing exactly the same thing.
Fifth gear and 150 miles an hour as they cross the start-finish line. They go down here to the gate into 3rd gear, and now they're accelerating down the long straight. 4th, 5th, and finally 6th before reaching 185 miles an hour, and the hairpin, which will be a 2nd gear hairpin. You hear the downshifting going on now aboard Rahal's car. This is 2nd gear, up quickly into 3rd. This S-bend combination, back into 2nd right here, and back up into 3rd. This long turn taken in 3rd, in and out of the throttle, now hard on it into 4th, and 5th coming up. Will be a 2nd gear turn coming up as you see the CNN tower there just ahead.
Moving up a position, Danny Sullivan's car. He runs in 3rd place. Get an idea how much he has to work that wheel to get his way around this racetrack. Here's the race summary after 86 laps. 3 cautions, 12 laps. Has pretty much taken the fuel battle out of the race. But the track itself has taken a number of cars out of the fight, most notably the 5 car of Nigel Mansell. Coming up on Lakeshore, the top speeds of the racetrack, and then slamming the gears down, jumping all over the brakes and into the corner, Bobby.
When they go into the turn there, when Sam was counting the gears down, people didn't hear a lot of the gear changes, and what he does is often the drivers miss 2 or 3 gears, and like he'll go from sometimes 5th down to 2nd.
Scott Goodyear back in the pits again. A day that could have been so proud for him has not worked out. This is his 3rd stop of the day, and definitely out of the sequence. They have been struggling with this car, though Goodyear has managed to keep it in the top 10, and just before coming to the pits was running in 8th place. Now as he comes up to speed, we'll ride with Scott Goodyear. Here's that long curving straightaway. Clear sailing ahead for Scott Goodyear, so he can come fully up to speed now, and just begins to slam down through the gears again. And there's Jimmy Vasser making a move onto the inside. You may have noticed too when we were riding with Bobby Rahal and Danny Sullivan that The 75 car of Willie T. Ribbs was in the middle of the fight as they came into the first corner, and every inch the sportsman, Willie T. was able to move off the line and let that battle for the lead of the race come through. So at the front of the order, it is Paul Tracy, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, then Danny Sullivan. Bobby Rahal is close behind as we look through the entire top 12. Night after life goes on in America's Funniest Hour, one of the biggest events in television history returns as they star in the classic miniseries The Thornbirds. That's all tonight here on ABC. Danny Sullivan sits in third place. Fittipaldi just ahead of him in second. And Paul Tracy, Fittipaldi's teammate, is the leader of this run. As we move now to the closing laps here at Exhibition Place. Paul Tracy in front, 90 laps complete, 13 to go. Emerson Fittipaldi second. Then the Gallows car, Danny Sullivan. And then Bobby Rahal with perhaps his best run of the season. Then Al Unser Jr. driving for Rick Gallas. And in sixth position, it's Robbie Gordon driving for A.J. Foyt.
Now you can watch Paul Tracy right there on top of the screen, red-white car, and notice how careful he's really being. You know, he has about 6 seconds approximately on ammo, and he's really trying not to make any mistake. I don't think I've ever seen him try quite this hard, Paul.
Let's go pit side again, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, remember at the top of the show we talked about the fact that Team Penske was trying to close on Nigel Mansell as we continue to watch the great run by the Gallas team as well. Well, this is coming to fruition. Paul Tracy leads, Emerson Fittipaldi is in second, but they have radioed to Fittipaldi that if he should stay in second place and hold off the closing Danny Sullivan, he will take the points lead. Fittipaldi is aware of it, and I'm just going to assume that he may have backed out of the throttle just a little bit to take over the points lead rather than the victory.
Well, of course, Jack, the team would love to see Paul Tracy win here in his home city. And I think also there's a risk that if Paul were to slow up to try to hand the lead to Emerson, Danny is so close behind Emerson right now that the whole strategy could backfire.
It would be a very popular win for Paul Tracy to win here in his home. They have never had a Canadian win an IndyCar race in Canada, so it would be a first. Jack Gerould?
Well, Sam, you know, one of the things you got to remember, though, about Team Penske is when it gets down to the short parts of the race, they don't call the shots. It's left to each of the drivers. As much as Tracy would like to win, believe me, Emerson Fittipaldi has not let it go unnoticed that he shares 2 victories, as does Paul Tracy. He feels he's the leader of this team, and he should have more victories. So believe me, he's not backing off because of that. He's backing off because of points for the championship.
Fittipaldi is 6 seconds behind Paul Tracy. Here is the battle that continues between Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Danny Sullivan. Sullivan in third. The fight is for third, fourth, and fifth.
Now, well, keep in mind, there's little Al behind Bobby Rahal. Keep in mind, pit stops are over. No more pit stops. Whatever they have for tires, that's what they'll finish with. So the guys are all weighing out everything with the other guy on do they have something left, or are they going to have to stick where they are?
Of course, on this circuit, so tight, so narrow, and yet so very fast, the slower traffic can definitely figure into the finish of this race.
Tires are one of the biggest problems as far as the handling goes. When the rubber goes down on the tires, when it gets close to the core, they don't stick as well. So passing becomes a whole lot harder.
Paul Tracy with Kevin Kogan and Hiro Matsushita behind him. And here comes Fittipaldi. Johnny Unser in there, too. How does Johnny Unser fit into the Unser family, Bobby?
Well, Johnny is my brother Jerry, the one that was killed in Indianapolis many years ago. This is his youngest son, who's decided to make a career out of automobile racing. And by golly, he's looking pretty good today. He's found a sponsorship with the Ruger Firearms Company. And believe it or not, Bill Ruger himself came here to watch the race today.
He shot one of the biggest antelopes in history, has a high standing in the Boone Crockett book. Quite a hunter and an outdoorsman like a lot of you Unsers, right, Bobby?
Yes, he certainly is. And he lives in Idaho, not New Mexico.
Well, Paul Tracy at the front, his teammate Fittipaldi in second place is now beginning to close on Tracy. He was 6 seconds behind just 2 laps ago. Now he has closed to 4 seconds behind the leader of the race, the number 12 car of Paul Tracy. The crowd definitely anticipating a win here. Paul Tracy has been cheered by this crowd throughout the weekend, as have the other Canadians, Ross Bentley and Scott Goodyear.
The blue and white car that you're seeing there, of course, Kevin Kogan having an exceptional run for a man in great pain. I talked to Kevin. He's having a big plate taken out of his leg. very prematurely, much earlier than he had planned to, because he finds he just can't drive with it in there without having to suffer through enormous pain.
Sam, didn't you tell me the other day that the plate just doesn't bend with the sides of the car inside, and that's just blocking the blood or something in his leg?
Right. He has to drive by plan. He can't drive by reflex. He has to say, by this point in the track, I'm going to have the throttle wide open. Not good.
So on board, fourth place, Bobby Rahal, Danny Sullivan in front. And what is shaping up for a good battle at the front of the field as Willie T. Ribbs gets over, brushes the wall, and climbs out of the car.
He'd been running 16th.
That should be far enough off the line that here at lap 95, they will not go to a full course yellow to get that car cleared. So 94 laps are complete. We'll be back for the finish. No full course yellow. They're going to leave Willie T. Ribbs' car right where it is since it's not in danger. So here's the way they line up, and you'll notice that in traffic, Emerson Fittipaldi has fallen back by nearly 3 seconds. He was up much closer to Paul Tracy. 97 laps are complete. The entire front of the field is now beginning to close in on one another, and Danny Sullivan and Bobby Rahal have been battling close to one another and should be in contact for competition shortly. There's Willie T. Ribbs' situation that got him into the wall with the left front of the car. He is okay and out of the car. They will go yellow flag in that area of the race course only.
As we watch Paul Tracy leading this race, one can't forget it was a couple of years ago that he came on board the Penske organization ostensibly as a test driver. Now he is really bearing the fruits of some of the testing and the work that he did through months and months of thankless operating down at Nazareth in the cold weather and so on, because at that point the Penske cars were as difficult to set up as the Lolas are today. Today they are very easy to get set up at each track. We spoke of that and how temperamental the Lolas have become, and a lot of the credit goes to the man you see right there in the center of the screen, Paul Tracy.
Paul Tracy, the Canadian, his hometown crowd now anticipating a possible win by the young Canadian and beginning to come to their feet, but Emerson Fittipaldi still trying to remain in contact, though he's fallen another 0.2 behind Paul Tracy, now at 5.57 seconds behind. Then Danny Sullivan is 16 seconds behind Paul Tracy. You can see, though, as the rubber builds up in many of these corners, the line itself is much narrower. They don't have nearly the opportunity to pull offline in competition that they had in the early going.
All the rubber comes off the tires. All the pavement comes a little bit loose, and all ends up on the outside of the groove, Paul, like you were saying. If they get out there, it gets too slippery.
And here is the only fight that's really in contact on the race course. Danny Sullivan in third, just ahead of Bobby Rahal. There you see him, that blue number 7 car. Rahal, the gold and black car. And then Unser Jr. is in fifth, just behind him. This is the big fight on the circuit. It is led by Danny Sullivan at the moment.
Rahal has been fourth twice and fifth once since taking over the operation of the Lola instead of the Rahal-Hogan car. So this is another strong performance as he runs fourth right at this moment. But of course he's in that sandwich, a very volatile situation.
Bobby Rahal letting Danny Sullivan definitely know that he is there at the one critical passing point on the circuit. Danny Sullivan with slower traffic just ahead. Back at the front of the field, it's still Paul Tracy. Team Penske has led in every race thus far this season, and Emerson Fittipaldi has led 49 laps in this race. In order to take the 1 point for leading the most laps, he would need to complete 3 more laps at the front of the field, and we just crossed the 100th lap. So it looks like the point will definitely go to Paul Tracy.
You know, as the cars crowd in, you realize that the only place that they can do any passing is right braking. Look at Mario coming down, trying to get under Danny right there. That's where you can do the passing, but the tires are all pretty much worn out right now. The track is slippery out of the groove, so we want to watch really careful. We may see some action pretty quick here. Only about 2-3 laps left.
Not to confuse that battle with Danny Sullivan. That was Mario moving inside Hiro Matsushita. Sullivan still locked in battle between Bobby Rahal and Unser Jr.
And just remember that if Paul Tracy holds on to win, this will be the first time this race has been won by a Canadian. So the crowd is on its feet and very excited in the prospect.
Paul Tracy, remember, though, has been chased by bad luck throughout his career with Penske Racing. Not to wish any of that on him now, because he runs so solidly alone in the lead. but mistakes have cost him dearly despite all of the laps he has led this season.
This is a race that he has had in his mind. He's been imaging this race for months now, he spoke even right as he had won at Cleveland a week ago. His mind was already shifted forward to this race, and with just 2 laps to go, as you can see, I think he has a darn good chance of hanging on.
Such a very important run to Paul Tracy, who yesterday in the qualifying thought that he had. Sullivan reaches up and pulls a tear-off away, right, Bobby?
Yes, he certainly was. Look how close they are. They really get it. They're really going to try some pass it. Look at Ray Hall all over Danny Sullivan there.
I'm going to say that Paul Tracy thought he had the pole wrapped up, but Emerson Fittipaldi grabbed it at the very last lap of qualifying. But now we ride with this battle as Danny Sullivan in 3rd place and Bobby Rahal sensing the end of the race himself and trying to do everything he can to get around Sullivan. As the white flag, 1 more lap to go, will be displayed to Paul Tracy as he flashes over the start-finish line alongside of Teo Bobby.
As we watch the cars that are remaining try to do the passing, remember there is no more blocking allowed. Wally Dallenbach is watching them. That's like a policeman watching a speeder.
So Paul Tracy runs alone, unchallenged at the lead of the race. He has only to coast it home.
And if he had pain from his throat early in the game, I bet he's not feeling it right now.
Fittipaldi in 2nd place. That battle that you see between Mario Andretti and Teo Bobby is not a battle for position. They're just running together on the circuit.
Remember, this is exactly the finishing order that we experienced last week in Cleveland. The Penske cars running 1-2. Incredible domination here in the center part of the season.
And it looks like Paul Tracy may in fact get several major accomplishments behind him. His 3rd win, 2 in a row, and a Canadian winning for the first time in the IndyCars in front of his home crowd. Paul Tracy has taken the win here in the Molson Indy Toronto. So Paul Tracy, the victor here today. Emerson Fittipaldi screams for the line now in 2nd place. He is unchallenged. The real question is the battle that will come behind him. Sullivan as he drives for the line with Bobby Rahal coming up behind him, but Danny Sullivan is able to hold Rahal off, and Sullivan finishes 3rd, followed by Rahal and Al Unser Jr. But the day here in Toronto belongs to the hometown boy, Paul Tracy. He rules and others follow. They've held that sign for a long time. Congratulations to Paul Tracy. We'll be right back to talk to him. Popular victory as Canadian Paul Tracy takes the win and Penske finishes 1-2. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, congratulations. First Canadian to win in the hometown of Toronto.
I tell you, it's a great day for Canada, and I can't be more happy for myself and my family and the whole team to come up here into my hometown and to win and have Emerson and myself on the front row. It's just a great day.
What about the performance of this car? It looks as if it's really beginning to come together with your performance as well at the midway in the season.
Well, I think so. I think the car's coming together really good, but I wouldn't count out any other team. Sullivan, he was inspired right there throughout the whole race. And Emerson, he was on it, and I thought for a while I wasn't going to be able to catch him, but I was able to haul him down and able to get by him in lap traffic again. But just a great day. I couldn't be happier to get 2 wins in a row and to win here in my hometown. It's just great.
Well, let's check in with Gary Gerould.
Well, here's Emerson Fittipaldi, and Emerson, quickly, the big news for you is the fact that with Nigel Mansell going out at the midpoint of the race, you now have a 3-point lead in the championship's point battle. That's got to be reason for a big smile.
Well, I'm very pleased, Gary. I was running very strong, and then the last segment of the race I was missing gears, and I had to slow down a lot. I just managed to finish 2nd. I'm very pleased, and my teammate made a beautiful job.
Is it tough to sacrifice a chance to win when you get a chance now to lead the points?
Well, I was trying to go for the win, but then when I started missing gears, I had to slow down. But I'm very pleased to be leading the championship now.
Terrific job. Jack?
Let's check in with Danny Sullivan, getting awfully racy, but let's talk about that black flag. It came close, but you didn't get it this time.
Well, I didn't know what that was. He kind of held it out there, and I thought, wait a minute, I didn't go anywhere near the speed limit. But they didn't have it on the backside, so it was okay. But I lost my tires right before the last stop, and that cost us a chance at running with those guys the rest of the way.
Paul, close is only good in horseshoes and hand grenades.
So Paul Tracy takes the win, and Jack Arute takes the trite line of the day. Paul Tracy out in front, good finish, followed by his Penske teammate Emerson Fittipaldi as we look down through the entire unofficial final results of this field, with Johnny Unser, the last car, actually running at the finish. All of these cars were disabled and out of the race, and most notably there, of course, Nigel Mansell. Now, what does all of this do to the PPG points? Well, it puts Emerson Fittipaldi in front, and Paul Tracy moves up into 4th place, and Tracy is within striking distance of the lead in the points at the next race as we look through the rest of the point standings, rounded out by Jimmy Vasser.
Well, as Emerson Fittipaldi is fully aware, Nigel Mansell focused worldwide attention on this series, and now Emerson is the one that is poised to take advantage of the glory.
And without all the yellow flags today, we would have had a fuel problem with the car, but without that, we had a super good race. And congratulations to Tracy.
And Tracy rules. Next, the Indy cars move back to an oval at Michigan International Speedway. We'll see you there in 2 weeks. I'm Paul Page for Sam Posey and Bobby Unser. So long from Toronto.
The Molson Indy Toronto has been brought to you by Valvoline. People who know use Valvoline. By Toyota and their full line of quality cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. By Subway, the place where fresh is the taste. And by Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. Saturday, ABC Sports heads to England as Arnold Palmer and Gary Player lead the field to the Senior British Open. And back in the States, the ladies tee off in our national championship. It's the U.S. Women's Open live. Now, stay tuned for World News Sunday over most of these ABC stations. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.